In the United States, a tornado rips through Pfizer's North Carolina plant.
Authorities say about 50,000 pallets of medicine were thrown out by the winds. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Rich Yelago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. House of Representatives prepares for this year's State of the Nation address. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is due to visit Malaysia after his SONA next week. Chinese hackers breach U.S. envoy Nicholas Burns' email account. UNSC to convene talks on Russia's withdrawal from the Black Sea grain deal. And Private Travis King's return from Pyongyang to remain Washington's top priority. The House of Representatives is preparing for President Marcos Jr.'s upcoming second State of the Nation address. Eden Santos for the report.
The House of Representatives says that the Batasang Pambansa has become off-limits as personnel from the Presidential Security Group, the Philippine National Police, and the Armed Forces of the Philippines conduct security inspections. According to House Secretary General Reginald Velasco, that all of SONA's equipment went through thorough tests to avoid malfunctions. He notes that contingencies are also set to ensure a smooth program flow for the morning and afternoon sessions of the Congress. Meanwhile, the National Capital Region Police Office says that over 20,000 policemen will be deployed on the coming State of the Nation address. Next week, July 24, 2023, the President is set to deliver his second SONA at Batasang Pambansa at 4 in the afternoon. Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is set to bolster the Philippine economy through bilateral cooperation with Malaysia during his 3-day state visit. Elijah Villanueva tells us more.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and First Lady Maria Luisa Araneta Marcos were invited by the King of Malaysia to undertake a state visit to the country on 25 to 27 July 2023.
Foreign Affairs spokesperson Maria Teresita Daza reveals that the President will meet with the King and Prime Minister of Malaysia to identify areas of synergy. Priority areas for cooperation will support the economic plans of the Marcos administration.
He will pursue bilateral cooperation in priority areas that are actually in support of the economic agenda of the country, and that will include agriculture, food security, tourism, digital economy, tourism, and will also focus on people-to-people exchanges.
President Marcos will also engage with Malaysian business leaders to attract investment and promote the Philippines as a favorable trade and tourist destination. The visit aims to solidify the already robust relations, coinciding with the 68th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two nations. Elijah Villanueva for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. vows to continue the building of major infrastructure that is vital to the country. Here is Vin Pascua for the details.
So let us build upon this achievement as we continue the unending work of building structures that will bring a better life and an invigorating future for all our fellow Filipinos.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. inaugurates the Improving Growth Corridors in the Mindanao Road Sector project in the Zamboanga Peninsula. The President notes that the project expands the Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, East ASEAN Growth Area Road Network. He adds the expansion also improves the effects of economic and order initiatives in Mindanao. The president reiterates his administration's efforts in nation building as pursuance of the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028 and the 8-point socio-economic agenda. The Mindanao Road Project is the construction of additional road and bridge developments across Zamboanga and Tawi-Tawi. The project involves the improvement of 152 kilometers of roads and 34 bridges of a total length of about 3,375 linear meters in the said region. The president also expresses his gratitude to the Asian Development Bank for its support for the project. Vin Pascua, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. commends the National Security Council, or NSC, and the National Intelligence Coordinating Agency, or NICA, for their enduring commitment to safeguarding the country and its people. At the joint anniversary celebration of the NSC and NICA, President Marcos praises their remarkable service. He recognizes them as unsung heroes protecting the nation from various threats and ensuring order. The president emphasizes the importance of their continued vigilance with the pressing issues of territorial integrity, terrorism, and cybersecurity.
The low-pressure area, or LPA, is expected to develop into a tropical depression located 950 kilometers east of southeastern Luzon. Weather specialist Benison Estareja says when it becomes a tropical cyclone, it will be named Egay and counted as the 5th tropical cyclone this year. He added that for now, the LPA has no direct effect in the country. However, southwest monsoon will cause scattered thunderstorms and rain showers to Mimaropa and western Visayas. Weather forecast states that the tropical depression may stay 5 to 6 days within the Philippine area of responsibility. Pag-asa forecasts light to moderate winds, flash floods, and possibly landslides due to heavy rainfall.
The Department of Finance puts up the Maharlika Fund microsite following its inking into law by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Tuesday. The microsite, which can be accessed through a designated link, features contents related to the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Also known as Republic Act 11954, it aims to accelerate the implementation of key infrastructure projects. The Maharlika Investment Fund, or MIF, aims to become a medium to generate profitable investments under the 8-point socio-economic agenda.
The Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, clarifies that it is not authorized to issue visa documents. DOLE issues a warning about scammers falsely using their names to collect visa clearance fees. They advise the public to be cautious of transactions with groups or individuals, further saying that the public must remain vigilant against such fraudulent activities.
The Philippines pays more than $606 million, or about 2/5 of $1.6 billion deficit last year. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, announced that the narrower deficit in monthly balance of payments, or BOP, is caused by the national government net withdrawal to foreign currency deposits. These funds are used to clear the country's foreign currency debt obligations and various expenses. In June, $2.26 billion were brought from excess first semester print to $3.1 billion loss in the first half of 2022. The central bank says that as of June, the final statement for the gross international reserves, or GIR, is at $99.4 billion. BSP explains that the preliminary data is the cumulative BOP surplus income from personal remittances, net foreign loans, trade-in services, and foreign direct investments. They added that a full-year BOP in 2023 is expected to settle a narrower loss of $1.2 billion from $1.6 billion in the last 3 months.
The Department of National Defense, or DND, seeks non-traditional sources of weapon systems to modernize the armed forces of the Philippines, or AFP. Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. also assures the public of the DND's efforts to fill the gaps in the first two horizons of the AFP modernization program. The AFP modernization plan is structured into three horizons. The initial phase was implemented from 2013 to 2017, followed by the second phase spanning from 2018 to 2022. The third and final phase is scheduled for the period from 2023 to 2028. Teodoro reports that the AFP has already submitted their wish list, including diesel-electric submarines.
Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro says that the Philippines is monitoring continuously the tensions between China and Taiwan. According to the defense chief, the Marcos administration is relentlessly planning for all contingencies. The Department of National Defense earlier announced that the government will prioritize the safety of Filipino workers assigned in Taipei. Data shows that about 150,000 Filipinos work and live in Taiwan. Meanwhile, some observers warn the Philippines may be caught in the crossfire and become China's military target in case an armed conflict erupts. Coming up, thousands of people take to the streets of India over a viral video. Senior doctors of UK's National Health Service stage a rare walkout. And the UN Security Council calls for an emergency meeting on the Black Sea grain deal. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
In today's fast-paced and ever-evolving world, people crave more than just products or services. They also yearn for meaningful and memorable experiences. This desire has given rise to what is known as the experience economy, a transformative concept that has reshaped industries and captivated consumers worldwide. We will speak to the top honchos of the Nexperience Group to discuss their innovative and eye-candy enterprises that push the experience economy as the next big thing.
Restaurants are just there. Cinemas, parang usual na. So, ano yung thing na pwedeng maka-excite sa amin? So, yun yung ino-offer namin.
Dapat talaga madala natin tong mga very unique experiences here and really give it to the Pinoys.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Cambodian leader Hun Sen's eldest son and chosen successor hailed Victory Day in a final rally ahead of a one-sided election that his father's ruling party is guaranteed to win. One of the world's longest-serving rulers, Hun Sen has played off tensions between the United States and China to cement his grip on power, although critics say that Cambodian democracy is in a sorry state. A crowd of tens of thousands of supporters on motorbikes dressed in bright blue gathered under gray skies in a huge celebratory motorcade parade around the capital of Phnom Penh. It was the final rally before Sunday's election, which has seen all meaningful opposition either disqualified or exiled, leaving voters no choice but to hand Hun Sen's Cambodian People's Party a majority in the 125-member parliament. The Candlelight Party CPP's only credible rival was barred from running over registration technicalities.
Chinese hackers breached the email account of the U.S. ambassador to China, Nicholas Burns, targeting the intelligence gathering campaign. The hackers had also accessed the email account of the Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia, Daniel Crittenbrink. U.S. officials tagged China as one of the most advanced in cyberspace. Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, says that Beijing has a larger hacking program than other governments. United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken discussed the hacking incident in a meeting with Chinese diplomat Wang Yi. Hackers started in May and used stolen keys to hack into their accounts.
Parents of children of war dismiss kidnapping allegations made by Ukrainian media. From Donetsk Republic, Russia, RT News correspondent Steve Sweeney reports.
Olympian Alexei Talai brought children from Donbass to Belarus. He never dreamed he'd be accused of kidnapping. But that's exactly what happened when Ukrainian media organizations twisted the truth. Instead of summer camps, activities and rehabilitation, Alexei was accused of stealing the children and holding them against their will. But we spoke to the children and families who were in Belarus, and they told a very different story.
When you yourself in the middle of this event take children away from their parents on trust and bring them back, it was of course very funny to hear. And once again, it all confirms that to believe, listen or watch the Ukrainian media, it's just senseless. They turn all the facts upside down.
The children liked everything. The team leaders were very good. The children made new friends there. They are now contacting, calling each other. They decided to get together and they talk to each other and their team leaders. Everyone met with a smile. Even some of them shed tears of joy that everything was so good.
It's like attempts to defame, slander and smear both Russia and Belarus. This is like the strategy of the Ukrainian side. We have long since got used to it, but at least we have to deal with it.
I really liked the playgrounds that were there. There was a big pool, 2 pools even. There were bike races, we rode bikes. The team leaders showed us lots of games. We met a lot of kids. I'm still in touch with them today.
Organizer Olga Volkova has dedicated her life to supporting disabled children in Donbass. She says that the Ukrainian press didn't contact her for comment and didn't bother reaching out to the families of the children. But she insists the program will continue, explaining how the children benefited from the camps.
We have done this together with Alexei Talai. I was the first one who went to Belarus with these children. I went to the Ministry of Education. I submitted lists of recommended children. There were socially unprotected children, orphans, children whose parents had fought in the war and died, children with disabilities. They are the most vulnerable groups. But from 2014 until today, all children have been living in a war, so we decided to develop this program and try to include not only young children, but also older disabled children, so that they could at least live calmly for some time.
The children and their families that attended the camps saw the physical and psychological effects of the rehab and being away from a conflict zone. Many of them want to go back, some even permanently, and all spoke highly of Alexei.
We would like to thank Belarus. They helped my child to start walking. Our doctor said he will never walk, but Alexei invited us and he started walking. Children are happy. My acquaintances also traveled to Belarus, taking their children there. They're happy, they cry, they want to go to Belarus again so they won't hear any bombings.
The fake news is part of an attempt to create a narrative that Russia is stealing children. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claims that nearly 20,000 have been taken by Moscow during the conflict, while the International Criminal Court has opened a case against Russian President Vladimir Putin based on spurious evidence. But we can see that the facts are very different from the fiction peddled by Ukraine. Truth is the first casualty of war, they say. This should have been a feel-good story about a Paralympic athlete bringing joy to children and an escape from the horrors of war. Instead, Ukraine turned it into something very different, something sinister, a fake tale of abduction and coercion.
It is a shame that I fell under the sanctions of a democratic and bright world. They subject such discrimination to a Paralympian without arms, without legs, who helps children. Where is the democracy and humanity? How could I, the father of 4 children, not help the children who suffered from your bombs and various rockets? Rumours spread about us that children are disappearing here in Belarus. Ask them, the children, if they were glad to be here under a peaceful sky, and each of them returned home to their parents. The way this project stirred up the hearts of people in Belarus and Russia is a bad example to the West of our unity, our brotherhood, how much they chattered that we did not have a developed civil society. Nothing is functioning, but we are working. But for them, it is important that we have devastation and hopelessness here, that people leave.
The situation escalates with Russia declaring a naval blockade and bombardment of Ukrainian ports, leading Ukraine to warn that it may target all shipping from Russia and Russian-occupied ports. Prince Limonero has the details.
At least 3 people are killed as Russia conducts airstrikes on Ukrainian cities, while Russia's Navy carries out a live fire exercise in the northwest Black Sea, where they successfully destroyed a target ship using anti-ship cruise missiles. The European Union, or EU, and the United States extends and imposes more sanctions against Russia. EU Chief Diplomat Joseph Borrell confirms the withdrawal of Russia from the grain export deal has caused a rise in wheat prices on global markets.
But what we already know is that this is going to create a huge food crisis in the world.
In response to the crisis, the EU is actively considering a 20 billion euro fund for military aid to Ukraine, signaling support for the country's defense efforts. Prince Limonero for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A viral video from the Indian state of Manipur has triggered widespread outrage across the country. The video shows a group of men, with some of them potentially being minors, groping and sexually attacking the women belonging to the ethnic Kukizo tribe and escorting them towards an empty field. The incident is from May 4, where 3 women of a family were sexually assaulted, one of them gang raped, her father and brother killed by a mob of hundreds of men. Public demonstrations were held through the streets of Churachandpur, fanning fresh ethnic tensions. Manipur police said they had detained a man visible in the viral video from Tubal district. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke about the sexual atrocities in Manipur before the beginning of the monsoon session of the Indian Parliament, saying that it was a shameful incident for any society. Whoever was responsible is another issue, but this has put the Indian nation to shame, stressing that the issue of a woman's honor is above all politics. Manipur has been marred by escalating violence since May 3 as the Kukizo and Naga communities took to the streets in protest against an order of the High Court that urged the state government to grant the scheduled tribe status to the Métis community.
Muslim nations have expressed outrage since their religious text has been desecrated. Iraq has expelled Sweden's ambassador shortly after protesters stormed its embassy in Baghdad and set parts of the building on fire. Supporters of the influential Iraqi Shia religious and political leader Muqtada al-Sadr had called for the burning of the embassy. The demonstrators were outraged over the second incident of the defacing of a religious text in front of the Iraqi embassy in Stockholm. While protesters in Sweden kicked and partially damaged the religious text, they stopped short of burning it as they had threatened to do so. Swedish media reports the incident was planned by a 37-year-old Iraqi refugee in Sweden who also has had cases of religious extremism in the past. The incident also prompted widespread anger in Iraq, with protesters overpowering Iraqi forces. It prompted several other protests in Muslim-majority countries as governments in Iraq, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, and Morocco decried the incident.
Thousands of the most senior doctors at the NHS in England are going on strike over pay, with the action expected to cause mass disruption across the National Health Service. From the United Kingdom, here's Ryan Florentino for the details.
English hospitals were braced for the latest doctor strike to hit the National Health Service, with managers warning it will leave routine care at a standstill. The 2-day strike began early Thursday morning consultants and hospital-based dentists also participating. Amid record patient waiting times due to a vast pandemic backlog and multiple strikes across the economy over the past year as workers battle a cost of living crisis. The action follows months of disruption as health staff have walked out, leading to delayed treatment and cancelled appointments for hundreds of thousands of patients. Junior doctors staged an unprecedented 5-day stoppage earlier this month over pay and staff retention, their third walkout since April. Nurses and ambulance staff have also taken strike action, eventually accepting a 5% pay rise in May. The British Medical Association says their take-home pay has fallen by 35% since 2008. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, however, has told the doctors to call off their stoppages and warned that the government will no longer negotiate on higher salaries. He said earlier this month the government had accepted recommendations from independent pay review bodies for salary increases of between 5.0 and 7.0% in the public sector. Sunak has pledged to halve stubbornly high inflation, currently just under 8%. He has said higher pay awards are unaffordable and just risk fueling inflation. Transport workers are due to strike at the same time as the consultants, with staff at 14 train operators walking out in the next week. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I am Ryan Florentino for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The United Nations Security Council will convene an emergency meeting to discuss Russia's withdrawal from a deal that allows Ukraine to export grain through the Black Sea. Britain, which chairs the UNSC this month, said the council will meet to discuss the humanitarian consequences of Russia's withdrawal from the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Russia announced the decision to halt the deal and since then has launched attacks in and around the port city of Odessa in southern Ukraine. On Wednesday, Russia's defense ministry said it will consider any ship in the Black Sea bound for any Ukrainian port to be a potential carrier of military cargo.
Это вывод из-под санкций поставок российского зерна и удобрений на мировые рынки. Второе. Должны быть убраны все препятствия для российских банков, финансовых институтов, которые обслуживают поставки продовольствия и удобрений. В том числе речь идет об их незамедлительном подключении к международной банковской системе расчетов SWIFT. Нам нужны не какие-то обещания на этот счет и какие-то идеи. Нам нужно выполнение этих условий.
In the Council's ministerial meeting following Russia's announcement of the pullout decision, the United States and European nations said the withdrawal could threaten global food security. Russia said it will only consider resuming the deal when obstacles that hinder exports of its farm produce and other products are removed.
It is so important to make everything possible to restore Black Sea Grain Initiative, to return balance to the global food market, to return prices under control, and to give Ukraine the possibility to provide cereals to the countries who need it the most.
U.S. Department of State spokesperson Matthew Miller says the return of American soldier Travis King, held by North Korea, continues to be an extremely high priority. Randy Bayuga has more details.
The U.S. State Department insists that despite limited communications with North Korea, the return of the U.S. servicemen remains a top priority. Spokesperson Matthew Miller says diplomatic efforts are ongoing. From the White House to the State Department to the Pentagon, Miller says all are continuing to work together on this matter to ascertain information about the well-being and whereabouts of Private King.
We have relayed messages to the DPRK that Private King crossed on his own, and we want him returned safely. We have also asked for more info on his well-being. I will say that we retain a number of channels through which we can send messages to the DPRK.
Miller, however, says that communications between the U.S. and North Korea are limited.
We have made clear on a number of occasions that we have wanted to have discussions with them about their nuclear program and their violation of UN Security Council resolutions. We have made outreach to them on a number of occasions, but the responses have been limited.
Meanwhile, the Pentagon says the U.S. Army has launched an investigation about the fate of Private King. Officials have made clear that their first priority is securing the soldier's release.
Our biggest concern about Private King is that we want to bring him home. And we are doing whatever we can through the interagency from DOD and other partners to find a way that we could bring him home. Again, as you heard me say, we have not heard any contact. We have not received any communication back from the North Koreans, but that is something that remains our focus.
Private King was due to return to the U.S. to face disciplinary consequences after serving jail time in South Korea. He instead left the airport, joined a tour of the border, and fled across it. Ronnie Bayuga for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, 4 officers in Venezuela now free after being taken hostage by detainees. Pop star Shakira faces new probe from Spain's tax office. And London builds 25-kilometer super sewer for River Thames cleanup. Matanang Agila International will be back after a short break. Don't go away.
Na world-class ang galing ng ating mga nurse. Pero ang tanong, bakit tila sa ating bansa nauubos na sila?
Ang number of nurses na napuproduce ay kulang po sa mga number naman na lumalabas. Posibleng magkaroon tayo ng collapse ng healthcare delivery system.
Dahil na po kulang sa nurses, ang nangyayari dapat yung 1:10, nagiging 1:ward. Aba, hindi na po makatarungan yan doon sa klase ng trabaho binibigay namin.
Sapat ba ang nakukuhang suporta ng mga nurse sa ating bansa? Mag-reality check tayo.
Ay pagkatapos ng 8-hour duty mo, ewan ko kung pakinabangan ka pa sa dami ng pasyente mo.
Ang hirap na usapin pala nito.
In India, fire breaks out in West Bengal's clothing market. Authorities say about 12 fire trucks responded to extinguish the blaze. Police record no casualties. Meanwhile, local officials say more than 50 stores were burned to ashes. Investigators are still keeping track on the route of the fire.
A rare Mediterranean monk seal sparks opposition to a seafront development in Lebanon's north coast. Chief residents claim the seal seeks refuge in a sea cave at a secluded cove near the construction site. Local environmental group Terre Liban warns the proposed development could cause the cave's collapse, threatening the seal's habitat. Activists demand protection for the cave as a nature reserve and to preserve the seal's home. The International Union for Conservation of Nature reports that the Mediterranean monk seal faces endangerment mainly due to losing their habitats.
Investigators are combing through the debris following an explosion in Johannesburg, South Africa, that killed at least one person and injured 48 others. Police have cordoned off the area and are telling people to stay away. Elise Danielle reports.
The blast ripped open roads and flipped vehicles, damaging a 5-block area of downtown Johannesburg. One man is dead. Rescue workers discovered his body during a nighttime search of the blast area. A dozen of those hurt still remain in hospital. Many of the injured were passengers in minibuses that overturned in the explosion. Some witnesses reported chemical odors and escaping vapors following the blast. The cause still remains a mystery. Initially, emergency services blamed underground gas lines for the explosion. But the gas utility ruled that out, saying customers had no interruption of their service. Elise Danielle for Matandang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In Venezuela, 4 police officers are now free after being taken hostage by detainees at a holding cell there. The officers were released after 30 hours. Sean Davila has the details.
The 4 hostage officers were released after negotiations mediated by a magistrate resulted in a deal. This, according to Una Ventana a la Libertad, or a window to freedom, a rights group for inmates. The officers were taken Monday during a riot by detainees. They are accused of abuses at the holding cell in La Morita in the northern state of Aragua. During a head count, the detainees forced 4 into their cell with them. Videos on social media purport to show 3 policemen and a policewoman with their hands tied behind bars. The officers insisted, however, they were not being mistreated. The detainees claimed that police had been trying to extort money from them in exchange for food, family visits, or being transferred to court. Una Ventana a la Libertad says the claims will be investigated under the agreement reached. Holding cells like the one at La Morita are supposed to keep detainees for more than 48 hours under law. But between procedural delays and massive overcrowding at prisons meant to receive them, many remain in such facilities for months or even years. Sean Davila, for Matandang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In the United States, a tornado rips through a Pfizer pharmaceutical plant in North Carolina. Pfizer confirms that the large manufacturing complex was damaged. The company adds that all of its employees were safely evacuated. Pfizer says that the plant produces anesthesia and other drugs along with 25% of all sterile injectable medications used in U.S. hospitals. Meanwhile, Nash County police say parts of the roof of the plant were ripped open and large quantities of medicine were thrown out by the winds. It adds that about 50,000 pallets of medicine were scattered across the facility.
Suspected leader of a group behind Japan's series of robberies, Imamura Kyoto, is arrested for instructing assailants in Chiba Prefecture robbery from the Philippines. Investigators believe Imamura used Telegram to communicate with one of the perpetrators. He arranged 130,000 yen in cash for the assailant, who rented 2 cars, one of which was used to flee the scene from the crime. Imamura was deported from the Philippines in February this year, with several other men believed to be senior members of the heist group.
Pop star Shakira is facing a new probe from Spain's tax office. This is after a court near Barcelona agreed to open an investigation into a second case of alleged tax fraud. The Colombian singer is already due to face trial at a date to be determined for allegedly not paying 14.5 million euros in taxes on income generated between 2012 and 2014. Shakira, however, denies any wrongdoing and refers to them as false accusations. According to the singer's representative, Shakira remained in accordance with the law and under the advice of the best tax experts. The prosecutors requested an 8-year sentence and a 24 million euro fine for the first case. This is after Shakira rejected a plea deal over the accusations of tax evasion.
3 people died in a deadly thunderstorm in Slovenia and Croatia. Croatia's Civilian Defense Department reported 2 casualties and huge property damage in localities. In Slovenia, a woman lost her life in a tree and at least 1 person injured. These incidents happened in some parts of Europe due to record-breaking on temperatures and wildfires.
Kenyans largely ignored a call by opposition politicians to join anti-government protests across the country. The protests have been slated to last for 3 days and so far have claimed at least 6 lives. JC Yumal has the details.
Opposition leader Raila Odinga called for the rallies to protest higher taxes and the rising cost of living. Odinga says the protests are peaceful but isolated clashes flared on Wednesday in the capital city of Nairobi. Demonstrators threw stones and police responded with tear gas and live bullets. At least a dozen of people suffered injuries and police arrested nearly 90 demonstrators nationwide. President William Ruto repeated his call to end the protests, saying they are not a solution to Kenya's problem. Odinga says Ruto is to blame for the country's economic troubles. Leading newspapers published a joint editorial Thursday urging Odinga and Ruto to hold talks. On Thursday, life have returned to normal with only small protests. JC Yumul for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
At least 9 people are dead and 15 others are injured from a speeding car in Ahmedabad City, India. Police report that says that the car crashed into a crowd on the bridge. Home Guard personnel and a policeman on duty were declared dead after the incident. Sola Civil Hospital medical personnel treated and provided medical support for the injured victims.
Rescue operations to find victims of a landslide in northwestern India have been called off. Officials say they can't continue because of heavy rain and the threat of more landslides. Jessica Bautista tells us more.
Officials in India confirmed that 16 people have been killed, but they fear the count could go higher. About 70 people have been rescued. The landslide happened in a remote hilly area of Maharashtra state where about 200 people live. 17 of the 50 houses in the village have been buried under mud. About 1,000 workers took part in the rescue effort. India has been drenched by incessant rains this week. In many areas, schools have been closed and train service has been disrupted. The water has washed out roads, leaving commuters stranded. India's meteorological department says since the monsoon season began on June 1st, the country has received 41% more rain. Flooding, landslides and accidents caused by the heavy rains have claimed more than 100 lives. Jessica Bautista for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Tennis ball-sized hail rained down and injured more than 110 people in northern Italy. Regional President Luca Zaia says that hailstones measuring up to 10 centimeters in diameter showered the streets of Veneto. She added that the wave of bad weather in mountain regions caused injuries to residents. Veneto Regional Civil Protection reports over 500 calls for help, damaged property, and personal injuries have been responded to by emergency services. Meanwhile, workers are removing broken glass from windows and cutting trees on streets.
NASA satellite's collision with an asteroid sent boulders into space. The United States Space Agency says dozens of rock fragments were sent into space when it conducted a successful effort to knock an asteroid off its path by making a satellite collide with it. NASA said images captured by the Hubble Space Telescope showed a swarm of boulders released after the collision, which was meant to test a method of planetary defense. The Double Asteroid Redirection Test Program, or DART program, was meant to assess whether scientists could shift the trajectory of objects in space.
And after a 10-month journey, millions of miles, NASA successfully crashed a refrigerator-sized spacecraft into the asteroid Dimorphos, 7 million miles from Earth, and it came in at 14,000 miles an hour.
The experiment was hailed as a success with the satellite slammed into the asteroid at about 22,530 kilometers per hour, successfully altering its course. In the future, scientists hope the technique could be used to swat away asteroids on course for potentially catastrophic collisions with Earth.
So the telescopes that have been used so far by the DART team in order to get this result are Las Campanas Observatory in Chile, the Las Cumbres Observatory Global Telescope Networks in both Chile and in South Africa, and the Danish Telescope in Chile. as well as the 2 planetary radar facilities of Goldstone Observatory in California and the Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia.
The World Health Organization warns that the extreme heat in the Northern Hemisphere is putting an increased strain on healthcare systems, hitting hardest those least able to cope. Timon Lee tells us more.
The World Health Organization says the heat often worsens pre-existing conditions. The health agency says it is particularly concerned about those with cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and asthma. Millions of people across 3 continents are enduring a sustained spell of dangerous heat as temperature records tumble Wednesday.
Extreme heat takes the greatest toll on those least able to manage its consequences, such as older people, infants and children, and the poor and homeless. It also puts increased pressure on health systems. Exposure to excessive heat has wide-ranging impacts for health, often amplifying pre-existing conditions and resulting in premature death and disability.
Dr. Tedros says WHO is working with the World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, to support countries in developing hot weather action plans to coordinate preparedness and reduce the impacts of excessive heat on health. Experts blame the heat waves on climate change, driven by the burning of fossil fuels releasing the greenhouse gas carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. WMO says repeated heat overnight temperatures are a particular risk because the body is unable to recover from hot days. This leads to more heart attacks and deaths. WMO is WHO's fellow Geneva-based UN agency. Timon Lee for Madanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A 25-kilometer-long super sewer is near completion in London after years of building work. The Thames Tideway Tunnel will divert water from drains which used to flood into the River Thames during heavy rainfall. From London, England, Sara Alcantara reports.
A world away from the city's busy streets, thousands of engineers and construction staff have spent the past 7 years creating the biggest ever upgrade to the city's 19th century sewers. London's existing sewerage network dates back to the second half of the 1800s when it was designed by civil engineer Joseph Bazalgette in response to the infamous Great Stink.
In a year or so's time, this will be filled with sewage, so we wouldn't want to be here. But this is it. This is kind of one small part of 25 kilometres of tunnel that snakes right under London.
With the size of the population set to continue to swell, the need for the 4.3 billion pounds or $5.6 billion upgrade has become critical.
When the system was built, this happened quite infrequently, a couple of times a year perhaps. Now this happens an average of once a week. And so in a typical year, 40 million tonnes of storm sewage, which is sewage and rainwater, spills directly into the Thames.
With the tunneling phase of the super sewer completed last year, it is on track to be trialled in 2024 and fully operational by 2025. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I am Sara Alcantara for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, British filmmaker Gareth Edwards drops a trailer for his new sci-fi epic. Like Mayweather and Pacquiao, Barbie and Oppenheimer take over the big screen. And Korean fried chicken chain BBQ opens its second branch in the Philippines. Catch more news in business, sports, and entertainment when we return.
Ang inyong sumbong siguradong may responding katapat. Hindi nagdadalawang isip na tumulong sino man ang nangangailangan. Viral ngayon, bird handler na nagbibigay ng libreng charity events para sa mga bata, kilalanin. Grupo sa Rizal, samut-sari ang ibinabahaging tulong sa mga bata at sa mga senior citizen, kilalanin. Mag-asawang, magkatuwang, na rumiresponde sa mga may sakit at mga pamilyang higit na nangangailangan. Libreng serbisyong medikal, door-to-door na rin. Yan ang atid na responde ng Hospital on Wheels.
Kami ang Hospital on Wheels. Certified E-Responders.
Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi, ito ang Responde, mata ng mamamayan.
Siya lang naman ang nag-represent ng Pilipinas at nanalo na 5th runner-up sa Miss Grand International 2022.
Si Miss Roberta Tamondo!
Master, handa na ako makapaglaban.
Hindi ka pa magaling.
Paano ako gagaling?
Hindi ko alam. Kasi ako hindi rin magaling. Kaya ko lang estudyante.
Tesla is engaged in a fierce price war with other automakers. This strategy is putting pressure on the company's own profit margins. Julian Bunag has the data.
Tesla's CEO Elon Musk indicated that he is prepared to reduce prices on electric vehicles once more, despite the challenging circumstances that the company is facing. Since late last year, the company has implemented multiple price reductions in the United States, China, and other markets. Additionally, they have bolstered their efforts to diminish inventory by offering increased discounts and other incentives. This strategic measures aims to safeguard the company against both competition and economic uncertainty. The significant price reductions have put pressure on Tesla's automotive gross margin, an indicator closely monitored in the industry. However, Musk has affirmed that Tesla is willing to sacrifice margin in order to prioritize the stimulate volume growth. Tesla reduced the prices of its Model Y long-range version in the US by a substantial quarter, bringing it down to $50,490 this year. Tesla's quarterly automotive gross margin declined to 22.1% in the second quarter, down from the 23% in the first quarter. This figure aligned with the street estimates, but was notably lower than 26% reported a year ago. Tesla's overall gross margin for the April-June period was reported at 18.2%, marking the lowest in 16 quarters. Julian Bunag for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Master pop vocalist Tony Bennett dies at 96, less than 2 weeks shy of his birthday. Bennett died in his hometown of New York, with the cause of death not being disclosed. He is best known for his signature hit I Left My Heart in San Francisco. As a recipient of 18 Grammy Awards with 36 nominations and a Recording Academy Lifetime Achievement Awards recipient in 2009, Bennett also garnered 2 Emmy Awards. His legacy will always be remembered. In later years, he duetted the jazz standard Body and Soul with Amy Winehouse and released a full-length duet album with Diana Krall and a pair of recordings with Lady Gaga. Bennett was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 2016, but still continued to perform and record through 2021. Frank Sinatra called him the greatest popular singer in the world. Bennett is survived by his wife, Susan Benedetto, and 4 children, including Antonia Bennett, who has become an accomplished standard singer in her own right.
Meanwhile, the 20th Century Studios releases first full-fledged trailer for the upcoming science fiction action thriller, The Creator. The creator is set in the future in the middle of a war between humanity and artificial intelligence. John David Washington leads the cast as a former Special Forces agent Joshua, where he and his elite team will embark on a world-saving mission in a futuristic sci-fi setting. Together with Washington, the film will also feature Gemma Chan, Ken Watanabe, Sturgill Simpson, Madeleine Yuna Voiles, and Alison Janney. Directed by British filmmaker Gareth Edwards, the creator will be in theaters on September 29.
Now showing in cinemas are the highly anticipated Oppenheimer and Barbie, or what the internet collectively calls Barbenheimer. Stephanie Maya reviews are in.
Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's 3-hour opus, provides the viewer an intimate view of the world from the perspective of American theoretical physicist and the father of the atomic bomb, J. Robert Oppenheimer, played by Cillian Murphy. Oppenheimer is best seen in IMAX as Nolan intended. It is a visual spectacle, impressive in its scale with superior performances. But it is overlong, with a tendency to become dull and tedious, as a large part of the movie is devoted to many conversations using scientific jargon. But the visuals, the mood, the performances, the haunting musical score, and a fleshed-out story in Oppenheimer will inspire intrigue about this important historical figure.
And maybe Christopher Nolan's heavy visuals and riveting dialogue aren't your thing. Well, let's fly off to Malibu for Greta Gerwig's take on Barbie.
Though, that the controversy surrounding the 9-dash line is pointless. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Do you remember that crunchy and crispy chicken you wanted to taste while watching the K-drama Crash Landing on You? Well, there is no need to book that flight to Seoul to be able to enjoy it. Catherine Ortula has the scoop.
In less than a year after opening its first store in the Philippines, South Korea's BBQ Chicken opens its second store in Quezon City. Dubbed as best of the best quality chicken, the popular South Korean fried chicken chain was brought to the Philippines by Vanessa Singson. It was first introduced to the country when it opened its first branch at Central Square in Bonifacio Global City, Taguig, last November 2022. The BBQ stands for Best of the Best Quality, a result of both long-standing Korean tradition and modern research and development from their very own Chicken University. The team at BBQ established Chicken University in Seoul back in 1995. The chicken is cooked in the traditional method. According to Singson, diners also like their other popular Korean food offerings such as tteokbokki, kimchi fried rice, fried dumplings, and cheeseling fries. Present in the said grand opening and ribbon cutting are Karina Interviews host Karina Sanchez and Goodwill lead cast David Chua. Catherine Ortula for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Our last item is so for Fridays, right?
I'm hungry now.
Me too. To end the week, here's a quote from Grammy Award-winning rapper Lonnie Rashid Lynn, or Common. We as people have a purpose here to contribute to the earth, to contribute to people's goodness and good life.
That's something my parents always taught me, that we have to remember the life we live should be beyond our own purpose and beyond ourselves.
And what good is it to be around and not make this world a better place?
Yes, yeah. So reach out to the people around you, talk to them. Maybe you can make that difference.
Yeah, right.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes. Happy weekend.
Yes. Happy weekend, everyone. I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.